is burning. We are losing 19 hectares of forest per hour, mainly coming from conventional agriculture, supposing it will boost Brazil's economy. Agribusiness plays a crucial role for Brazil's economical development. The fact is that most political and economical decisions are based on short-term profits. Deforestation will not stop without a feasible economical result. We need a nature-based solution to propose government authorities and agribusiness representatives agroforestry is as economically viable as conventional agriculture. What is agroforestry? A sustainable agricultural system that mimics forest ecosystems, preserves forests, produces commodities industries need, while ensures food security for farmers and local communities. It's scalable, repeatable, and profitable. We need your voice to make this solution be heard. Let's make agroforestry mainstream. Are you in?
So that's the opening of the video for reNature, and now I'll start the presentation. So yeah, as Sven was saying, I came from a family that works with a large-scale organic citrus farm in Brazil. So they were working with over 1,500 hectares, which is quite an amount of land if you think of like Dutch landscapes. But in Brazil, it's like it's still small, like it's a medium-sized kind of farm. And so I was always passionate about agriculture and about nature, and coming from my mom's family. But from my dad's family is a banker. I was also like trying to figure out ways that we can, you know, put business and finance in a way that they can dialogue with nature. So I went to the Amazon rainforest in Brazil and spent some time with indigenous communities, Yanomami communities, that they would grow every single thing from the forest, like from food to medicine to fibers, and everything you can imagine, also to build their houses. And I was impressed by their knowledge on how to manage the forest resources. But then when I left the Amazon, I saw this massive deforestation for soybean, cattle ranching, and logging industries. And that really terrified me big time. And since then, I have decided to change the way we're treating our natural resources and the way we're treating and respecting our forests. And I saw how much impact this has on farmers and communities living in that region. All these people, they are food insecure because they grow the major crop for a company that they don't even, because they want to make use of their land just to make as much profit as possible. And that's really sad because they have to buy industrialized food and then they get sick and they don't want to keep farming anymore in the future. So when I saw that, I thought like, okay, I want to go to the field and also go to the conference to be able to present about this issue we're facing with deforestation, with unsustainable agricultural practices. And in Brazil was very hard because most of policymakers and government authorities, they are not yet aware of the issue and this topic. So I decided to go to the Netherlands, and that's where I found Marco. So we are both the founders of reNature, and reNature stands for Regenerate Nature, and that's how things started. So reNature was born in Holland because we saw that today's industrialized farming, it's taking more and more of our natural resources and growing one single crop. And it's also threatening our food security because the quality of the soil is decreasing, the pest resistance is increasing, and price per kilogram is also increasing because of the changes of some cash crops into commodity. And it's also threatening our natural forests. We're losing 8 million hectares of tropical forest per year. And that's a tremendous amount of degradation that is happening. And it also accounts to 1/4 of CO2 emissions. So agriculture alone, it's 25% of the global greenhouse gases. And that's mainly because we're degrading landscapes. We have 1.9 billion hectares of land already degraded. And if we could actually reverse this scenario and regenerate this land, we could potentially outreach the number of tons of CO2 we need to actually sequester and stock this inside the soil. So it's extremely vulnerable to climate change, this conventional agricultural system. And excludes nature. So that's the down component of this unsustainable agriculture practices. And what we offer is a regenerative agroforestry approach that it can include nature in every design process. What does it mean, regenerative agroforestry? So let's go back in time. Before we humans even arrived on this planet, we had only bare rocks fulfilling the ecosystems around the planet. And by time has passed, we have started having some annual crops, some perennial crops, some grasses and shrubs. And then it came to the climate zone, which is the abundant zone, as we call, which is basically all the forest ecosystems full of diversity and full of microorganisms in the soil that allows species to perform better and have their own needs for growth. But when we humans came to this planet and we came across many challenges and we had a couple of wars and the Green Revolution, then we start deforesting this forest ecosystems to grow one single crop. We invented technologies like biotechnology with using fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, everything that was needed to ensure that we could provide food security for the population back in time. So we believe that we should have been using these resources. And honestly, it was important back there, but now we have more scientific background to understand, hey, what can nature teach us? And now what we're doing is investigating all the design process within the forest ecosystems to make the best outcome that it can speaks in behalf of nature and agriculture to solve the nature-based solutions for climate change. So basically, it's a combination of agriculture and forestry. So we call agroforestry. And the difference between monoculture and agroforestry is that monoculture is one single crop and that the farmer is extremely reliable on one major cash crop that they sell. And agroforestry, you diversify the farm so that the plant species, they can fulfill the needs of each other. And then the farmers can have multiple income streams as well. And the provision of ecosystem services, especially soil carbon, is tremendous. We have investigated that around in the regenerative agroforestry systems, if you take in consideration the soil carbon, it's around 36 tons of carbon sequestered per year in one piece of hectare, in comparison to a conventional, which is around 8 to 10. If you take only consideration the superficial layer of agroforestry is around 20. So the differences is really big if you really take the soil in consideration. Anyway, conventional agriculture is extremely reliable on external inputs. So it's an input kind of agriculture. So farmers are always dependent on having costs of bringing fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and injecting in their crops. While in agroforestry, it's input self-sufficient. At least over a couple of years, it becomes self-sufficient. In the beginning, you might need some, like replacement organic inputs. But over the time, the difference of agroforestry is that you don't even need external organic inputs like organic farming is using. You use trees and grasses to replace the biomass and organic matter composition to use as a cover crop for the soil. So we use these trees to prune them and then put in the top of the soil so that it can remain, keep the humidity in the soil as well as the flow of nutrients. And conventional agriculture is over pumping water from soil. So if we actually look into some scientific papers, we are overusing water, especially in avocado farms. As you guys know, probably like water footprint of avocado trees is tremendous, and that's because avocado species, they like to be in a forest ecosystem, and we're putting them in a monoculture everywhere in the globe because it came from Mexico, and it needs a lot of water. But what agroforestry does is actually you keep water in the soil, because by planting perennial crops and trees, you allow the root systems of these species to open space in the soil web, and then create the more interaction between the microorganisms. So you have more nutrients cycling, but also more water moisture, allowing these plants to keep in the below soil. And there's always this myth, like, hey, Felipe, great, but there's desert ecosystem that you cannot do anything about it. It's already degraded, or it's not an ecosystem to actually be restored or regenerated. The funny thing is, we have done in Brazil a test with this cactus, and it's a specific, it's a common species in desert ecosystems that actually has 90% of water inside. So what we have done is that we pruned them all in this desert in northeastern Brazil, and we add them in the layer of together with the seedling, that it can try to help to regenerate this land. And as you can see, the results is amazing. So it's all about the knowledge of species. So it's by knowing which species to plant, you can actually influence in the regeneration of the land, and also increase the economic development of the rural areas that is actually, extremely eroded the soil. So Ernst Getsch is my teacher within this agroforestry network, and he always says we should create areas of permanent inclusion of humans and animals instead of permanent protection from them. Because most of environmentalists and conservationists, they're saying, hey, let's leave nature alone. Nature does the work for itself. Don't put agriculture. And all the farmers, they're saying, hey, we should make as much profit in the short term as possible, so that we can sell to the companies. And there's always a fight between them. And what we're offering is hey, we can include both, preserve and produce, to benefit both parties, to make sure that we have a prosperous future in this space of nature inclusive agriculture for climate change mitigation. So there are several benefits. I don't want to quote them all, but I can send you guys this presentation later as well. But there is a diversification of production. You can potentially increase productivity even having a less species of trees. For example, cacao. Most of cacao monoculture, let's say there's around 500 cacao trees. And agroforestry, there's less because there's other species. But even though sometimes in a piece of hectare, cacao can yielding more than monoculture because of the interaction with other plants. Anyway, so reNature goes to reach 1 million hectares, as Sven was saying before, by 2030. And we aim at storing around 200 million tons of CO2, which is not much as but if you're talking about intercropping designs in agriculture, is already quite ambitious, let's say. And 1 million hectares out of the 1.9 billion degraded is also not much, but it's a realistic approach, and we believe in partnership to reach these goals as well. So how can we do this? We develop model farms, model schools, and transition package. This is our model. So a model farm is a demonstration plot. So a farmer or a community or a company comes to us and say, hey, reNature, we would like to see how your agricultural system works. So we implement a demonstration plot, a small scale, 1 to 5 hectares, so that these people, they can see how it works in practice, these systems. This is how it looks like. So we always include these three components: the biomass, so that we can replace the external inputs; the food for farmers, so the farmers can eat from their own farm, so they sit together with us and they share what they would like to eat from their farm; and the economic resilience, so the cash crop or the target commodity that this farmer is producing. So in this case, we did with Verstegen, the Dutch spices company in Indonesia, for white pepper production. And this is how it looks like from in 10 to 15 years, the system. The cash crop is the white pepper in this example, so that Verstegen can be an off-taker supplier. And then you have biomass species like Gliricidia. In a temperate climate, we use a lot of the we use willows, for example. But anyway, that's getting too much detail if I continue. And then the model school. So it's basically focused on training and inspiring farmers communities to replicate this model farm. And it's like a knowledge hub where we can replicate these model farms throughout their production units of the farmers and cooperatives. For example, Nespresso, they came to us saying, hey, we would like to not go for a model farm because we're convinced of agroforestry coffee. But we would like reNature to establish a model school so we can teach our agronomists that comes from agronomy studies in conventional universities to learn about these techniques so that we can adopt this regenerative agroforestry practice in scale for coffee. So that's an example of the, it's a scale up plan of the approach. So this is how it looks like, the one we did with Verstegen in Indonesia, again, and all the farmers very, very happy and curious about the agroforestry in general. And then the transition package. This is a service that we haven't actually launched yet, but it's like a transition fund that we want to be able to create like a toolbox for farmers to enable them to do the transition. So this is more interesting from a bank or impact investment organization because they have a portfolio of clients they already invest in. So let's say like Triodos, they already invest in Tony Chocolonely, for instance. And then they want Tony Chocolonely to, grow cacao more sustainably. So what we do is that we offer this toolbox for cocoa farmers from Tony Chocolonely to help Triodos to have a portfolio of clients they invest, transitioning towards regenerative agriculture. We come with farming inputs, so like seedlings, as well as knowledge transfer and financial support from these organizations. So this is how it looks like. The strategy is like a model farm, a simple pilot farm, then a model school, so like a long-term capacity building kind of like approach, and then transition package. And these are all the major commodities that we are prioritizing. That doesn't mean we're not working with others, like for example, white pepper we're doing in Indonesia with Verstegen, but these are the ones that actually cause most deforestation and degradation in the soil and also in agriculture. So we are focusing on them so that we can have a proof of concept and a portfolio of regenerative production for each one of them, so we can really engage businesses and the industry to transition. So that's the core goal of ours. So the demand comes from farmers and communities, but also from financial institutions, as I was saying. So like Verstegen came to us, they never heard of agroforestry and they want to try a small plot. So a model farm suits well. Nespresso says, hey, we can already go for a model school because we know for sure the success of agroforestry, so we would like to scale. And then Triodos is interested in like, helping their portfolio of clients to transition. So they come interested more in the transition package. So today we have this amount of projects, mostly Brazil, Africa, and Indonesia, but we're starting in Mexico as well. And where it says in Europe, we're searching still for a European project. So if you guys know any possibility, I heard from Sven, there is in the backyard of the office in Amsterdam possibility, and we can discuss that. But this is how it looks like the scenario now. So just quickly going through some projects. So we are working with cotton for the fast fashion brand called Renner in Brazil. They are kind of like the competitor from CNA Foundation in Brazil, and they invested in a model farm for cotton. So this is an example. Then we have 26,000 hectares of land in Amazon, and it's focused on legal extraction of cocoa and rubber, so that we can estimate how much tons we can harvest from a primary forest in the Amazon of 26,000 hectares. And then we can start finding off-takers. And Veja is a fashion brand for shoes. They have sustainable shoes. Maybe some of you have heard. But they guarantee the 20% more of the price in the market to buy for rubber from this Amazon forest, native rubber. And so our goal is to show that a standing forest is more profitable than entering with cattle or soybean deforestation practices. This is a really interesting project of more focus on conservation than actually agroforestry or regenerative agriculture. And this is like 100 hectares coffee production in Brazil. And this is a very interesting case because, I mean, the biggest influencer of impact in the world in agriculture and nature degradation, it is cattle ranching. So we're going to start 1,200 hectares silvopastoral systems using regenerative grazing methods from Alis Avery. Maybe some of you have heard of him, but the goal of this project is to collaborate with Savory Institute to prove that actually the Brazilian agribusiness can be more sustainable than actually is today with deforesting all this forest. And I'm glad because the family office investors for this project, they are really ambitious and they have 23,000 hectares available. So if this is a proof of concept that we're going to start this year and they want to see in 2 years time, if it's a success, then they will replicate for all these 23,000 hectares. And the cattle ranching, it's like, as you guys know, that it's the hugest contributor also to the climate crisis we are facing now. So I think that's also a very interesting project to start digging. So the one in Mexico, in Yucatan, with citrus. So it's also focused on, it's a fruit company. They have fruits, juices, and then the Indonesia white peppers with Verstegen. Palm oil, we are also investigating the feasibility study for palm oil agroforestry systems in Indonesia. You know, a lot of people in Holland and worldwide, it's against the palm oil in general, but the problem is not the plant in itself. The problem is how we actually plant them. So like a lot of people is against soybean or palm oil, but they are actually not bad for the environment. It's just the way we actually, you know, manage the landscape and design the system. So we're looking forward to start the palm oil, and then coffee in Rwanda with this Side Up is a Dutch brand. And this is how we would like to look like by 2030. So having 500 model farms, 78 schools, and 14 transition packages. So the SDGs, zero hunger, good jobs and economic growth, climate action, life on land, and partnership for the goals. My two favorite ones, climate action, because I mean, like, it's immediate importance, and also partnership for the goals, because the SDG 17 is like, it's really the transcription of agroforestry, because we use different species to actually produce crops, right? So our goal as reNature is also to bring different corporates to produce their own commodities in the same landscape. So let's say Tony Chocolonely needs cacao, and cacao likes to be shaded by timber. So why not have IKEA to produce timber, giving shade to cacao, and Tony Chocolonely and IKEA can benefit from the same landscape by diversifying and increase carbon storage. So that's one of the goals for the partnership that we have. So these are just a few brands we're talking to. Some of them we already worked with. Some of them we're discussing to start something together. So Lush, we're gonna be starting in Kenya as well, a project soon. And the other ones are just interesting partners for us, like Wageningen, to do the measurements of impact and everything. Just a few key figures about the growth, but that's not relevant here. We were featured at the World Economic Forum, how regenerative agroforestry could solve the climate crisis. So that's a really interesting article so that you guys can also take a look later. And the teams we have, so it's based in Amsterdam. I am from Brazil, but we have Marco is Dutch, have team from UK, Leandro Brazilian, a German Alex, and Carol Brazilian. So we have also the board of the foundation, because we're both a stichting and a BV. We started as a stichting, but we became a BV last year as well. The reason we actually became a BV because the Fernando Russo, our advisory there, he's an impact investor, and he was, curious, like if we would like to start a BV and start a company to improve the commercial projects, and he invested us seed money. Yeah, so that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and join us to reNature this world.